Well, this is one of those rare occasions where I can wear a Dallas Stars jersey because they won tonight. Now, I'm not over the moon over the game because it felt as much like it was a meltdown as it was a victory. Meltdown for the team they were against. We'll get to that. First game of the night we're going to look at is San Jose in against the Boston Bruins. And San Jose didn't look like San Jose. And maybe this is the new reality. Maybe this is what San Jose is now. Like, for all of my speculation during the summer that I didn't know that San Jose would necessarily be as good this coming season, I had no idea this was going to happen. This is not a good result for the San Jose Sharks, and that's kind of understating it. The Bruins got a power play 6 minutes in, and then Pastrnak scores from Bergeron at 7:49. That's a power play goal. That's Pasta with his 12th already. Whew. And they sent it to a review. They challenged it, and it was a good goal. They challenged it for offsides, and you could tell it didn't come out, so it was a good goal. So that means a penalty for San Jose. So that's the kind of night they had. The Bruins then took a penalty. San Jose didn't take advantage of that one, but before the end of the period, they get another power play, and guess who scores? Krejci with his first of the year from Krug and Marchand at 17:51. So for fans who were worried that Marchand wouldn't continue to be hot in this game, he was. And I know he's got a lot of fans out there. So yeah, 2-0 Boston after one. Second period, early on, San Jose looks like maybe they're going to put up a fight. They get a power play. Burns scores from Erik Karlsson and Thomas Hertl at 1:31. And then the Bruins got another power play. The Bruins spent a lot of tonight on the power play. Charlie Coyle scores from Krejci and Heinen at 5 minutes and 21 seconds. It is 3 minutes and 10 seconds after that Wagner scored from Backes, and at that point the shots were 23-10 in favor of Boston. And at the end of the night, they don't really look that much better for San Jose. They really don't. Carlo scored from Wagner and Chara at 16:50, and after 2 periods it was 5-1. And the only question left was, how much uglier could this get in the third period? And Boston really did. They let up in the third period. The fighting didn't. The fighting got going. Goudreau and Ritchie got into a fight. There was then a mix-up with Couture and Marchand. Both of them were thrown out of the game, even though it wasn't a fighting major. It wasn't 5 minutes. And even if it was, there was more than 5 minutes left in the game. So this was just, all right, everybody's out of here. Just misconduct, you're gone. I was surprised Goudreau and Ritchie didn't get misconducts. And then there were some angry moments late in the game. And Timo Meier left the ice. He looked like he was hurt on the play. So we'll see if there's anything more that comes out of this in terms of injuries and anger and whatnot. But these teams came out of tonight really not liking each other very much. It was kind of a rough third period. But for San Jose, you can feel the frustration boiling over. Jones saved 36 out of 41. For people who are keeping track of his save percentage, he had an 878 tonight. Rask saved 16 out of 17. I'm not putting this on Jones. I'm just pointing out his save percentage. 3 stars, Krejci, Wagner, and Coyle. So this is one of those games where it wasn't the Bruins' first line that won the game for them. Although all 3 players get on the board, it was not the first line that won it. Nice to see a good game for the depth players. Nice to see Coyle get on the board. He's starting to be rewarded offensively for the work he's been putting in this season. Power plays, San Jose goes 1 for 3. Boston went 2 for 8. Yeah, 8 power plays. Shots were in favor of Boston the whole way. 16-6 in the first, 18-6 in the second, 7-5 in the third. Final shots 41-17 in favor of the Boston Bruins. So overall, this game was a disaster for San Jose. They really don't have anything to take from this. But we're getting further down that rabbit hole now. What started out as, well, it's a slow start, they can bounce back, is turning into, okay, we're going to need to change something here, and I'm not sure what you change. The defense hasn't been good enough. The goaltending hasn't been good enough. I know they're talking about guys like Schmidt coming in, and once Radil gets used to it. No, they need more of a change than that. The bump they got from Marleau coming back into the lineup, it's gone already. This team needs some serious help. Moving along. Capitals. This game was thrilling. It really was. This was the one that I had a hard time turning away from. It was a really good game. And Janssen scored from Matthews 40 seconds in, which felt important because Toronto and all the media and all the talk all day about, is Ovechkin throwing shade at the Leafs? No. He was just saying if they want to win, here's how they're going to do it, and they're going to have to make some decisions. Everybody goes, oh, he's throwing shade at the Leafs. No, he wasn't. The goal was on the first shot, and it was the rare opening goal for the Leafs. The Leafs don't score the first goal very often, so tonight was a change from that. And then Kuznetsov at 1 minute and 3 seconds, it was an ugly fall into the boards. He stayed in the game, but it was an ugly fall. Riley then got a penalty. The Caps get a power play. The Leafs then they were able to kill it. They got a power play of their own. As things are going back and forth, guess who scores? John Carlson. From Ovechkin and Backstrom at 10 minutes and 47 seconds, Carlson continues his run to the Norris Trophy. Right? Can we say that? No, I can't say. I can't say that. Legal reason. Okay, all right. The teams then exchanged some late power plays. There was a 43-second 5-on-3 for the Leafs, and they actually called a timeout to try to come up with a plan. Whatever they drew up on the board didn't work out, and the Caps killed that off. So it's 1-1 going into the second. And at the start of the second, it was revealed that Jake Muzzin, who had a leg injury in the first period, apparent leg injury, would not be returning. So that leaves the Leafs with 5 defensemen. Well, Dermott's back and now Muzzin's out. And of course, as a Leafs fan, you have to be kind of panicked at the idea of Muzzin missing any time because he's been, I would argue, their second best defenseman after Riley. Barry's been trying, but he has not been their second best defenseman. The Caps get a power play, and then it was a 5-on-3. And it didn't take long. It was 6 seconds of 5-on-3. Carlson from Ovechkin and Backstrom. Yep, it's the same combination as the goal in the first period at 7 minutes and 59 seconds. And that was a 2-1 lead for the Caps. And it felt like this game was getting away from the Leafs. The Leafs got to the power play at 11 minutes. They didn't get a shot on that power play, and they'd been held to 1 shot through 14 minutes of that second period. 1. Now, they did start getting shots later on. However, the power play was basically an outage. It wasn't working for them. And then Matthews scored from Barry and Riley, not O'Reilly, that's of course St. Louis. Barry and Riley at 19:27, and it felt like that was a huge goal for the Leafs. It ties it. It's in the last minute of the period. And honestly, it felt like they were starting to get their game back as that second period wound down. Those last 5 minutes, they looked really darn good. Start of the third period, they continued it. Matthews with his third goal of the game from Nylander and Marner at 1:46. So for the Leafs, they're up 3-2. It's their second lead of the game, and you're like, okay, so can they hold this? Are we going to be able to do this? The answer was no. Ovechkin scored from Oshie at 4 minutes and 10 seconds. I'm not sure how Ovechkin gets open like that, but that's a question people have been asking about Alex Ovechkin for many, many years. So he buries it, and he tied Luc Robitaille for 12th place on the all-time goals list. Wouldn't stay there for long. The Caps got a power play. That was killed off by the Toronto Maple Leafs. Marner then got a shorthanded chance. It was close. Holtby saved it. The game got kind of fighty at that point. These teams, much like in the first game, there's a lot of going back and forth. And this is what we see now. We don't see actual brawls. We just see like all 8 or all 10 guys coming together and kind of, as my wife would put it, they're just all hugging each other. But you get the feeling this could blow up. The Leafs got a power play with 3 minutes and 14 seconds left. And then Tom Wilson gets a shorthanded chance, which Anderson stopped. And that leads to overtime. So it's a point for Toronto and it's a point for Washington, and they go into the overtime trying to play for the extra. And Toronto is undisciplined in the overtime. They take a penalty and they kill it. So, we killed that. But then they take another one. And on that second power play, they pay for it. Ovechkin scores from Orlov and Vrana at 4 minutes. Ovechkin passed Luc Robitaille. He is now got 669 career goals. He's up to 12th on the all-time list of goal scorers. And he gets the overtime winner. He is your first all-star of the game. Second all-star was Matthews, and third was John Carlson. Holtby saved 27 out of 30. He wasn't fantastic, but he was good when he had to be. Freddie Anderson saved 30 out of 34. Shots in this game were 7-7 in the first, 10-8 actually in favor of Toronto in the second, and then 13-13 in the third. before Washington got all 6 shots in the overtime. 6. Final shots 34-30 in favor of the Capitals. Their power play went 2 for 7, and Toronto's went 1 for 8. So even though Toronto gets a power play goal in this game, we are still going to hear conversations about their power play and how, when it's needed, it doesn't necessarily come up big. Philly. Well, they didn't show up tonight. I honestly, this is sad. The Pittsburgh Penguins took him behind the woodshed tonight. Murray denied Raffle early, but early chances favored the Penguins. So I was like, all right, well, that was a nice save by Murray off Raffle. Good job. And then Schultz scores from Cahoon at 5:57. McCann scores from Cahoon and Rust at 8:13. And at 8:46, the game's over. Simone scores from Crosby. And then with 3 goals that quickly, the question I was asking was, does Elliott stay in no matter what? So because Carter Hart has struggled in his last couple of starts in the net, do you just leave Elliott in there? That was a key question. Eventually we got our answer. Crosby gets a goal from Simone and Letang at 14:02. The shots heavily favored the Penguins. Elliott was still in net. 4-0 after 1, and Philly just wasn't in this. Kevin Hayes had an ugly -3 tonight. So, I know that it's easy to kind of pick on him, but I'm pretty sure he was the only Flyer that was that far into the minus category tonight. The second period, the shots were kind of evening out, but the score just wasn't. So the Flyers were generating shots, but nothing was going in at that point. Jake Gensel then scored from Crosby and Simone at 16:40. And then 20 seconds later, Aston Reese scores from Jack Johnson and Teddy Bluger. So with 3 minutes left in the second period, it's 6-0 in favor of the Penguins. That's one happy Penguins crowd. 6-0. Third period. Lindblom scored from Couturier and Gostisbehere at 1:57 to ruin the shutout. And I had to put it on the board. I had to do it. Flyers power play. Are they coming back? So they got a goal, then they got a power play. Hey, maybe they score 6 in the third. They weren't going to score 6 in the third. Cahoon scores from Pettersson and Bukestad at 19:53. Because why not? So that meant that Carter Hart, who was in the game at this point, allowed a goal. Your final score is 7-1. This is not a good look for the Flyers. Very, very up and down team. Elliott saved 22 out of 28. Carter Hart saved 7 out of 8. Murray saved 29 out of 30. Your 3 stars, Crosby, Simone, and Cahoon. So, all Pittsburgh players should surprise no one. Power plays, both teams scored 0 on the power play. 0 for 4 for Philly, 0 for 3 for Pittsburgh. The shots were 16-6 Pittsburgh in the first period. Yeah, it was embarrassing. 15-12 Philly in the second, and both teams got 9 shots in the third. So at the end of the game, the shots aren't that uneven. 37-30 in favor of Pittsburgh. But when the game was important, when the score was close, Pittsburgh was getting all the shots and generating all the opportunities. So, yeah, for Pittsburgh, great night. For Philly, not so great. And this is, of course, one of their greatest rivals. This is the game they want to win, the team they want to beat. All right, moving along. Calgary in against Carolina. This game had its moments, absolutely. A game that had its moments. The interesting thing right off the bat was that Toby Reeder was in the lineup. So they waived him. He cleared waivers. Then he played tonight. He didn't get a goal, but he played. The Flames had some pressure. They got a power play out of it. Both goalies I thought looked really good. Noah Hannafin ended up hitting the post on one play where it was darn close. Then Lindholm scores from Gaudreau and Hamonic at 13:04. And they talked a lot in this game about how last year when these teams played against each other, all of the former Flames and Hurricanes playing on the other side now all got into it. Tonight, no, that really didn't happen. You get a goal from a guy who played in Carolina that's now with the Flames. You get an assist from a guy who's now in Carolina, played with the Flames. That's as close as you get. There was an offside challenge on a goal by Backlund, and it worked. So, yes, it was offside. It was not close. That was one of those ones where they had thought the defensive team knocked it back into their own zone, so it wouldn't have been offside. But since it went off a flame, that's an offside, and absolutely took the goal off the board. Second period, there was a close call for Svechnikov. Svechnikov was on all night. He really was. He was fantastic, and little did we know what he was going to do in the third period, which is just, the only thing I can say is that goal was magic. Riddick robbed Jacob Slavin late, and I believe Aho was in there too, and he robbed him as well on that play. So Riddick looked really good through 2 periods, and the Flames are up 1-0. The third period, what happened to Calgary in the third period? Now, you've also got to give credit to Carolina, where they were playing really, really well. But seriously, for Calgary, you had a lead going into the third period. That's supposed to be your period if you're Calgary. Apparently, it's a different season, different rules. The Canes got a needed power play. And Svechnikov scored from Wallmark at 9 minutes and 13 seconds. And I've got on the board, and I believe this, that it is the goal of the year. Behind the net, he scoops it onto his stick, and then he lacrossed it right into the net. Right off it looked like it was off the side of the mask of Riddick or off his shoulder. Went right in. It was just fantastic. Riddick, looking at the replay after the game, or, I guess he could have looked at the replay up on the big screen and be like, what the hell? Seriously? At the NHL level, that happens? And when you see goals like that, one of the things you think is, why don't guys do that more often? Around this time, Hannafin gets hurt and ends up leaving the game. There was something happened with Hamonic as well at some point. I believe it was Hamonic, who also had been limited in his ice time at that stage of the game. And the Canes started pushing for the lead. They sensed some weakness with Calgary at that point. Howla then speared Riddick below the belt, very sensitive area. It was funny, too, because it's one of those ones where the announcers are going, well, I don't really see... Well, yep, that's... yep, that's... that appeared to catch him, that's caught him in a sensitive area. Yeah, it did. It sure looked like it caught him in a sensitive area, so... and then, the thing was, there was no penalty for that. Carolina was on a power play at the time, so you're a goalie, you get speared right in a sensitive area, and even if you're wearing a cup, it's still not going to feel great. And I'm thinking to myself, I wonder if Riddick's still smarting a bit. And then Svechnikov put it in the net on the power play from Hamilton and Teravainen at 12:35, and I thought, that's 2 shots in the nuts within seconds of each other. One literal and one figurative. I take my hat off to Carolina, not literally, figuratively. And at that point, the Flames had 0 shots in the third period. So we're at 12:35. The Flames haven't had a shot yet in the third period. Carolina's just wave after wave, and anytime that the Flames get it out, they cut everything off, they get everything put down into the corner, and they clear everything out. It was a great defensive ploy by Carolina, and it shows that Rod Brindamore has a very well-coached team. The Canes took a penalty with 2:32 left. The Flames tried. They made a push late. They did get some shots at that stage, but they just couldn't solve Mrazek. So your final score is 2-1 in favor of the Carolina Hurricanes. It was 2 goals within 3.5 minutes of each other that beat Riddick, but Riddick saves 26 out of 28. Mrazek saved 28 out of 29. 3 stars, Svechnikov, Mrazek, and Slavin. So you can't even give Riddick a star, huh? At least give his athletic support. All right. Your power plays, Calgary goes 0 for 3. Carolina went 1 for 3. So a power play that needed to come through for Carolina did. Shots were 12-11 Calgary in the first, 13-7 Calgary in the second, but then in the third period, Carolina turned it on and outshot them 10-4. Final shots 29-28 in favor of the Calgary Flames. So, pretty solid game overall. That being said, now I have to change boards. Alrighty, the New York Rangers tonight played the best game they've played all season. Tampa Bay got nothing going for the most part. They did generate shots. When they did, their goaltending was great. But honestly, they were really good right out of the gate. They got an early power play, and the play was favoring the Rangers. You force the other team to take penalties when you have the puck and you're not giving it up, and that's what happened. But Vasilevsky played very well early on, and it looked like Vasilevsky might be working on a steal, especially when Kucherov scored from point in Stamkos at 15 minutes and 44 seconds. So it's 1-0 Tampa after 1, even though the Rangers are playing fantastic. So, are the Rangers going to fall by the wayside? No. Second period, the shots were actually 19-11 to 11 for the Rangers at 4 minutes, meaning that in 4 minutes they had 5 shots to none in that second period for Tampa. They were really way ahead of Tampa at this stage. The Rangers, they got a power play around the 7-minute mark. And this is around where they announced, oh, and by the way, Hedman's out and Maroon's hurt. So Victor Hedman could be injury time. We'll see if he ends up playing in their next game, but he didn't come back for this one. A lot of big names potentially on the shelf or on the shelf tonight. The scary Kuznetsov incident in the Toronto game and this. And, of course, Kuznetsov finished out the game, but some guys didn't finish games out tonight, and Maroon and Hedman for Tampa were 2 of them. So Tampa was down 2 players, and Hedman plays big minutes. So with a power play, Kakko scores from Strome and Panarin at 9:37. That's Kakko's second NHL goal. It's his first power play goal in his career, and he's starting to figure it out. So like Hughes in New Jersey, he's starting to figure things out. The whole "you're going to be a bust" thing, it always gets so overblown. People just take a 10-game period and go, oh, that's an easy bust. I don't get it. Tampa Bay got a power play. They couldn't score on it. And they only got a couple of power plays tonight. And Vasilevsky, honestly, was the only reason this game was tied at the end of 2 periods. Vasilevsky was fantastic. The Rangers didn't let up. So one thing about the Rangers, and this was something the Blues had going for them last year. So for people who watched my reviews last year, one thing I said about St. Louis, and I said this before anybody else picked up on St. Louis being any good, and there's still videos on the channel of the reviews from last year, so people can go cherry pick if they want. No matter how dire the score looked, the Blues always played their game. And no matter how good the score looked, the Blues always played their game. Tonight, the Rangers showed some of that. That no matter what the scoreboard says about the goals, they didn't let up and they kept playing their game. Very hard-nosed game. The third period, the interesting thing to me was there was a 2-on-1 with Kucherov and Coburn. Coburn had the puck, and he didn't make the effort to pass it to Kucherov. Now, it wasn't easy to pass it to Kucherov, but if you're a defenseman and you have a choice between allowing a shot from Coburn in close or Kucherov, you're picking Braden Coburn every time. And I put up here, this was the best game by far by the Rangers, shortly after Philip Hedl scored from Buchnevich at 12:46. This was Hedl's first game. This is his first goal. I think Hedl's going to stay in the lineup. So with Zibanejad out, Hedl went in, and he's kind of the hero. Trouba then swatted a puck away from the net. There was a dangerous play there for Tampa, and he literally just swatted at it and knocked it away from the net, cleared it out. And Georgiev was playing very, very well in that third period as well. So when Tampa did get the shots, he played well, and the post was his friend. Sergachev ended up hitting the post late in the game when it was 2-1, and before Adam Fox scores his first NHL goal. The assists to Kreider and Lindgren at 17:24. So, first NHL goal for him. Lindgren gets his first assist of the year. This kind of feels like it's an important game for the Rangers that all of their young guys are starting to hit. Hedl, Kakko, and Fox all on the scoreboard tonight. That's all good news. So they pull the goalie to try to get closer. Doesn't work. Strome scores the empty netter at 19:14. The Rangers win the game 4-1, and they looked like the better team the whole night. The shots will tell you that after we get past the 3 stars. Hedl, Georgiev, and Fox are your 3 stars tonight. Vasilevsky, 38 saves on 41 shots. Georgiev, 29 saves on 30 shots. The shots favored the Rangers every step of the way. They had 14 shots in each period. Tampa had 11 in the first, 11 in the second, and 8 in the third. They got better as the game went along. 42-30 were the final shots in favor of the Rangers. They go 1 for 4 on the power play. Tampa went 0 for 2. Very good game for the New York Rangers. Kudos to them. If they can play like this night in and night out against a team like Tampa, that a few games ago I said it looks like Tampa's starting to get it together. This was a major setback for the Lightning and a major step forward for the New York Rangers. And we'll get into why that's a setback for Tampa in a second here. Well, not in a second. After all the games. Next up, Detroit. I have a record on this channel that's strange. So I will talk about a winning streak, a losing streak. I'll talk about a team that's hot, a team that's cold. And whenever I do a video, it seems like that changes. Now, the reality is that swings in momentum and between hot and cold and winning and losing are frequent in the NHL. But the Detroit Red Wings had lost 8 games in a row. It was noteworthy. However, I pointed out that towards the end of that 8-game losing streak, they've been playing better. They've started out shooting teams. They've started getting more chances. And the last game against St. Louis, they probably should have won, and they didn't. Tonight, they won. It felt kind of like a trapping game somewhat too, and I don't mean like it's a trap like with Akbar, but I mean like they were playing the trap at certain points. The early shots favored the Wings. They got themselves a power play, and guess what? They scored on it. That's right. The Red Wings got a power play goal tonight. Larkin scored from Hirose and Bertuzzi at 7 minutes and 40 seconds. 8 minutes into the game, the shots are 6-2 Detroit. And I know by the end of the night, the shots are completely different, and we'll get to that part of it. But it was impressive how well Detroit was playing. At 8 minutes and 33 seconds, Nemeth scores from Filppula and Bowie. That's Nemeth's first goal as a member of the Detroit Red Wings. And it's 2-0 Detroit. This isn't a mistake. This is what happened. And I put up here, not a good start for the Oilers. This is the absolute nightmarish start for the Oilers. This is the game on a road trip that you win. This is the game on a road trip you circle it and go, all right, that's the one we should win. We're going to key on that. That should at least be a win for us. McDavid was denied by Howard. The Oilers got a late power play. Their power play would come up with 0 tonight. Second period, the Wings got a power play at 4:27. It didn't end up helping them, but Larkin's speed caused Bear to take a penalty later on. And Larkin had a very good game tonight, very visible in a good way tonight. And during the losing streak, he's had games where he's been called out. I think he deserves some credit for tonight. So going into the third, it's still 2-0 for Detroit. There wasn't a whole lot to put on the board in the second because, it was a really good game for Detroit so far. The Oilers' offense dried up. I put up with a question mark here because going to the third, the Oilers, they've been getting shut out lately. They came into tonight with 3 losses in 4 games. There's some reason for concern if you're an Oilers fan here. The James Neal story, fantastic. He's gone kind of cold. And a lot of other players that, were a really good story early have kind of fallen off. There was a Benning hit then that caused a scrum around the middle of the period. It was a clean hit, but you know how it is now. If you throw a clean hit, but it's forceful, that means everybody's got to get involved. The Oilers honestly started picking it up. They really did. Howard was making as many stops as possible, and the Oilers, it seemed like, were getting their confidence back. Draisaitl scored for McDavid at 12:48, and then it just seemed like it continued. So there was a 4-on-3 power play for the Oilers, and there was lots of pressure. So this is where they're getting all kinds of shots, and Jimmy Howard was fantastic. The Oilers pulled the goalie with 2 minutes left. I was surprised they didn't pull him sooner, to be honest, because it looked like with all the shots they were generating, getting that 6-on-5 out there sooner might have been better for him. But at the end of it, Hronek scores from Larkin at 19 minutes and 18 seconds. That's on the empty net. And the Detroit Red Wings beat the Edmonton Oilers 3-1 tonight. Very frustrating result for the Edmonton Oilers. And for Oiler fans, if this is starting to feel familiar, it is. Your only goal is Draisaitl from McDavid. There's no offense from anybody else. Guys like Chason, who did score last year, aren't this year. Kara's still sitting with 0 points. There's some frustrating things here. Koskinen was not. 25 saves on 27 shots. He was very good. Howard saved 31 out of 32. Larkin, Howard, and Koskinen are the 3 stars tonight. The shots were 13-6 in favor of Detroit in the first, 10-9 Detroit in the second, and then 17-5 Edmonton in the third. You can't do that, Detroit. Final shots 32-28 in favor of the Oilers. The Oilers went 0 for 3 on the power play. Detroit went 1 for 3. And this was the kind of win that Detroit needed, and this is exactly the loss Edmonton didn't need. The Oilers need to keep winning some games because Arizona and Vancouver are breathing down their necks. You got Vegas and Anaheim, who are also right up there with them. You can go from 1st to 5th in this division relatively easily right now. So they're going to have to clean it up, and they're going to have to pick up their game and get their offense going again. Next up, speaking of no offense, we need to have a discussion about the Chicago Blackhawks. They had the one game against LA where it looked like everything was coming back together. You can scrap that. The Nashville Predators tonight, you would have thought they were playing against an American Hockey League affiliate tonight. This was not a game that you can take much of anything out of if you're a Chicago fan, other than Robin Lehner is being hung out to dry. He was absolutely left hung out to dry tonight. The advantage was early for the Predators, and it feels silly looking at that on the board right now because it was an advantage for the Predators the whole night. Lehner was holding the fort. The Hawks got a power play. That didn't go anywhere. And then Nick Bonino, who was the story of the night, scores from Grimaldi and Smith at 17:56. He enjoyed scoring goals so much that the Predators said, you get all of them tonight. Second period, he scored again from Grimaldi and Fabro at 9:03. And at that point, it was a slaughter. The shots were 34-11 in favor of the Predators as they were up 2-0. When a team's only generated 11 shots through roughly half the game, I don't know what to say about that. And Chicago, it's not like they had a great record coming into tonight and maybe they took the night off. No, they need wins. They need to start putting wins together now. Lehner was standing on his head. I had that right on there. Lehner standing on his head for a team that's not doing anything to help him. There was a late Predators power play, and why not? Because you got to put more pressure on the goalie. They didn't score on the power play all night, and that's Lehner. Even the Nashville announcers said after the game, without Lehner, this would have been 7 or 8-0. Third period, Bonino scored from Grimaldi and Smith at 3 minutes and 40 seconds. And the Hawks were being outshot 3-1 was the rate. The rate was 3-1 through the game at that point. And it didn't finish much smaller than that. Like, it was almost a 3-1 shot differential through the entire game. Kane took a double minor, so he took a minor, and then he got another 2 minutes for unsportsmanlike conduct. Johansson then, however, took a hook during that 4-minute power play to make it a 4-on-4. And I had to put on the board, how many shots are the Hawks going to allow? Because it felt like every time they went in, they'd get 3 shots on Lehner. Poor Robin Lehner. Even with, I want to say 20 seconds left, Nashville's coming in for what looks like it's going to be a really dangerous chance. And Lehner's down, he's in the position, he's not giving anything up. And he looked just as determined as he would have if it was a 3-3 tie. So, kudos to Lehner for playing really well in the game even after it was done, and not just taking the attitude of, you know what, this game's over, I'm ticked off at my teammates. He saved 48 out of 51 shots. He doesn't get into the 3 stars. Normally I would rail against that, but I get it. Because Rinne gets the shutout. Only 20 saves, but he gets a shutout. It's the 57th career shutout for Rinne, and it's his 2nd in a row. It's the 4th time in his career he's had back-to-back shutouts. Your 3 stars are Bonino, Grimaldi, and Rinne. So Grimaldi with 3 assists, Bonino with the hat trick, and Rinne with the shutout. In this case, I totally understand why Lehner didn't get a 3rd star. I don't think Rinne would have cared if Lehner got the 3rd star, but I understand why he didn't. The shots, they're embarrassing. I need Mark Forward at some point to step into my studio. He plays the coach in Letterkenny. I need to have a garbage can, and I need to have him kick it right into that wall and yell, it's embarrassing, and then I can have that clip and just play it when something like this happens. The shots were 19-6 for Nashville in the first. It's only 1-0. And what did the Hawks do in the second? They get outshot 21-8. It's only 2-0. They've been outshot 40-14, and in the third they got outshot 11-6. Final shots 51-20 in favor of the Nashville Predators. It is embarrassing. 0 for 3 were the Hawks, of course, and 0 for 5 was the Nashville Predators on the power play. If this game doesn't serve as a wake-up call to Chicago, and they're very frustrated forwards, and I do get the feeling that Chicago's becoming very, very frustrated with how things are going. If this doesn't wake them up, I don't know what does. I honestly don't know what does. No clue. All right, moving along. Minnesota. What happened here? Now, as somebody who cheers for Dallas, you would think, oh, Shannon must have been cheering in the third. No, not really. I was bewildered. more than anything else. Just bewildered. I think seeing a meteor in the sky would have been less surprising than this tonight. And I'm talking like one of the bright ones, not one of them mamby-pamby little meteors. One of them big ones you see in like movies and stuff. And you got to send Ben Affleck and Bruce Campbell to fix it, or Bruce Willis. Bruce Campbell would be better though. First period, and I meant to say it doesn't matter. Jason Zucker scores from Foligno at 2 minutes and 50 seconds. And at that point, I'm like, yeah, we're off to a good start now. Woohoo, we're Dallas. We're going to lose early. Alrighty. The Stars got a power play at the halfway point, which meant it didn't score. That's how that works. Right? Dallas can't score on the power play. Stahl, he then scored on the power play for Minnesota from Zuccarello and Hunt at 17:54. It's 2-0 Minnesota after one. And I was like, all right, this game's done. That's it. Because Dallas has shown this year that they score at a rate of about 2 goals per game. And I think coming into tonight, I think it was exactly 2 goals per game. It wasn't good. So, it didn't feel good going into the second period. Second period, Zucker had a good chance. He missed that wide. However, they get another power play. 14:26 into the second period, Suter scores from Spurgeon and Zucker. Ta-da! It's 3-0 for the Minnesota Wild. 3. So the game that probably is getting the lowest viewership numbers in all the games that are played tonight. The Stars were stuck at 10 shots in the game. So they had 9 shots in the first. Over halfway through this period, they only had 1 shot. And then it happened. Now, there's one of 2 ways to look at this. Either Dallas woke up or Minnesota went to sleep. And if you're a Wild fan and you're going, you know what, our team went to sleep, you have a point. If you're a Dallas fan and going, no, we woke up, you also have a point. 4-on-4 play was going on with 4 minutes left. And the funny thing was, as soon as that third goal went in, the Stars started showing some kind of pushback. And here I am watching this and going, oh, now you start playing. You spot the other team 3 goals and you're like, all right, now we're comfortable. Now we're going to start playing hockey. Awesome. Great. Radulov, however, scored from Fedun and Sagan at 19:12. Now, what have I been saying in these reviews? Those goals in the last minute of a period, the first minute of the period, those can be really key. So was it? Yes, it was. For Minnesota, their confidence is so fragile right now. It was. Second period, Rope Hintz scores from Radulov and Pavelski at 4:09. And then Pavelski scored from Heiskanen at 9:36. Now, it was a deflection, but you'll take it. So Pavelski off a deflection, he gets a goal and an assist. It's the first time he's had multiple points in the same game as a Dallas Star. Good. This is what he needed. And I put on the board, who are these guys? So it's a tie game. The crowd's going completely insane. And all I could think was, what's going on here? And the Stars look dominant. Just absolutely, they're all over the ice. And the announcer said it looked like there were 10 Dallas players on the ice to 5 Minnesota players. There wasn't if you counted. But it looked like it. They were faster to the pucks. They were tighter on the checks. Everything that you could do properly in the game, Dallas was doing. And all I could think was, where have these guys been since March? Radulov scored from Heiskanen and Alexiak at 11:31. And it's 4-3 for Dallas. Now, the whole way I keep thinking, if Minnesota can just get one. If Minnesota can get 1 goal, it can turn the tide. Because as fragile as Minnesota's confidence is, I don't think Dallas's is much higher. That being said, the last 2 goals were off of defenders, so Minnesota's putting the puck in its own net. And it looked like after the Radulov goal, which bounced in off of a skate of a Minnesota defender, that the Stalock was looking skyward and just kind of smirking, smiling, like, what can I do? Realizing the last 2 goals went in off his own guys. So his save percentage ends up being, as those in Britain would say, bullocks. But it's not on him. I don't look at tonight and say, oh, well, Stalock wasn't any good. Because you don't anticipate you have to save shots off your own players. You're not like, hey, Spurgeon, let me know when you're going to kick the puck at me, all right? Yeah, all right, I'll let you know. Hey, Suter, when you're going to hit the puck with your stick and it's going to go in my net, can you let me? Yeah, okay. And I'm not saying those were the guys because they weren't. I'm just using 2 Wild defensemen as an example. The Stars got a power play. And the question I had at this point is Dallas this good? Is Minnesota this bad? Is the answer to both questions yes? Or is it just this is Minnesota being really bad and Dallas taking advantage of it? And I'll leave that to you guys in the comment section to discuss. Because really, in all honesty, this was a disaster for the Minnesota Wild. Sagan scored from Ben at 18 minutes and 20 seconds. And this is the happiest I've seen Dallas look all season. This is the most comfortable I've seen Dallas look all season. You can see the weight of the world coming off their shoulders with this one. They eked out a couple of victories there. They eked out a couple of 2-1 victories. This, a laugher, they needed this. The goalie gets pulled with 1 minute and 20 seconds left. Radulov completed the hat trick from Pavelski and Sagan at 19:30. So Sagan gets multiple points. Pavelski gets 3 points. Radulov with 4 points. The guys that we need to start producing. Ben gets an assist himself. The guys we need to start producing did. For Dallas, huge game. Stalock saved 31 out of 36. Bishop saved 8 out of 10 before being replaced in the second. Hudobin came in. Goal support for Hudobin. That never happens. He got it tonight. He saved 11 out of 12. Your three stars, Radulov, Heiskanen, and Eric Stahl was the third star. Power plays, Minnesota went 2 for 4. Dallas went 1 for 4, which is fantastic. They scored on the power play. Awesome. Shots were 10-9 in favor of Minnesota in the first, 10-6 Dallas in the second. So once they started getting shots, they had tons, but it took forever to start getting some momentum. And in the third, they outshot them 18-6. So again, it's a little bit of both. Dallas being pretty good and Minnesota being miserable. Final shots 37-22 in favor of the Dallas Stars. That being said, I now get to change boards. Winnipeg had made great strides, and tonight that all came apart. Now, Patrick Laine was not in the lineup. Of course, Adam Lowry is suspended. Their entire defense has been gutted. And tonight, all of that seemed to kind of show. But 55 seconds into the game, Ehlers scores from Roslovic and Pullman. So Nick Ehlers continues his amazing start to the season. Nick Ehlers, for me, has been their most valuable player thus far this season. I know he's not the number one scorer, but at least he wasn't coming into today. But he's been, for me, the most consistently excellent player in their lineup. However, Cam Fowler scored from Silverberg and Del Zotto at 10 minutes and 1 second. And with that goal, he becomes the all-time leading goal scorer among defensemen with the Anaheim Ducks, passing Scott Niedermayer. He's played a lot more games than Niedermayer, but he still passed that mark. 2 minutes later, Blake Wheeler reestablishes the lead, 12:02, 2-1 Winnipeg. Hellebuck had a really good save. The Ducks ended up going to a power play, but pretty good first period for Winnipeg. They're ahead 2-1, even though they're behind on the shots. You know what? They're fine until the second. And I still am trying to figure out what happened in the second period. 38 seconds in, Getzlaf scored from Comtois. Great face-off win by Comtois. Passes it right back to Getzlaf, and it's in the net, just right away. I still don't think Hellebuck's seen that shot. Henrique then scored from Silverberg and Mahura at 6 minutes and 18 seconds last season. Josh Mahura was called up by Anaheim, and I really liked him. I thought he was a good defenseman. By the end of the year, he's not in the lineup very often, and really wasn't talked about much during the summer. I don't even remember if I had him when I did the preview for this year's Ducks. I don't remember that I had him mentioned in there. I think I had him on the depth chart. He had a really good night. And I put up here the Jets need to answer after that Henrique goal, and then they did. Ehlers from Little and Morrissey at 7 minutes. So Ehlers with the second goal of the game, and the Jets are back in a tie. However, a minute later, Terry scores, and the assist was from Mahura. Really nice pass from Mahura. Terry gets his second goal of the year, and that's 3 goals on 4 shots in the second period for the Ducks. 4 shots. 3 of them go in. Then Grant scores from Delorier and Mahura at 9 minutes and 10 seconds. Now, it's at this point Brisebois comes into the game. I have no idea how Hellebuck could have saved that one. Grant basically parkoured it into his net. He hacky-sacked it into his net. And I'm not sure, and it wasn't a kicking motion, it wasn't off of his foot, but it was basically off his body and off his hip, and then it goes. I don't know how Hellebuck could have saved that. I don't think that This was anything but a mercy pull. Now, Brossoit came into the game. That says 14 for 18. That should say 14 for 19. Because, yeah, Hellebuck allowed 5, and then Brossoit allowed 1. So that should say 14 for 19. I got that from the app, so the app sometimes is just crazy. The Jets got a power play, and even though they were behind in this game, you got the feeling like, you know what, things are kind of loosey-goosey out here. It could happen. There's been crazy shifts. There was a shorthanded chance for Grant, though, during that power play. The Ducks took another penalty, but the Jets just couldn't finish it off. Third period, Brian Little scores from Ehlers, and at some point, I need to do a video about Little and how there's certain players that get disrespected by fan bases. So I could do a top 10, and I know Little would be on there. And just the general press around Little, and a lot of it has to do with Line, right? So Line being paired up with him, and oh, he doesn't belong with Little. Little's a pretty good player. He's a good two-way center, and he never puts up fantastic numbers, and he has a contract people don't like. But he's not a bum out there, and the name that comes to mind is Sutter in Vancouver, and how he kind of gets that same kind of treatment, and Sutter is pretty good two-way forward as well. And this was an unlikely wide-open game at that stage. The Jets were pushing, and they should have, because Gibson didn't look like himself tonight. Really, really didn't. Until later on in the period when I think he sensed, hey, if I hold this down, we win it. And he seemed to settle himself. Kyle Connor had 7 shots in the third period. He had 9 in the game. He did everything he could. Rowney then scored from Grant and Fowler with 16 minutes, at 16 minutes and 12 seconds left. And then I had to put this up here, and I'm sorry. Andrew Kopp had a great chance with 22 seconds left. Great save was made by Gibson, so I wrote up here, Kopp robbery with 22 seconds left. I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. But it was Kopp robbery. It was. I'm not sorry. Rowney then scored from Getzlaf into an open empty net at 19:57, and that made it 7-4. But there wasn't any doubt. There wasn't any doubt at that point that the Ducks are going to win this. Hellebuck, 14 saves on 19 shots, because I know there wasn't an empty netter in here. Brossoit saved 7 out of 8. Gibson saved 36 out of 40. So again, his save percentage still ends up being a 900 by the end of the night. 3 stars are Mahura, Silverberg, and Henrique. And again, Mahura being first star, we'll see if he can maintain that. I like Mahura, but we'll see. Power plays, Winnipeg went 0 for 2. The Ducks went 0 for 1. Your shots, 13-9 in favor of Anaheim in the first, 13-9 in favor of Winnipeg in the second, and 18-6 in favor of Winnipeg in the third. It just didn't matter. Final shots, 40-28 in favor of the Jets. It's a little solace, though, as they lose the game 7-4 to the Anaheim Ducks. So there you go. And for people wondering about the standings, very little has changed. Colorado, Nashville, and St. Louis are your top 3 in the Central. Edmonton, Vegas, and Anaheim are your top 3 now in the Pacific. Your wild cards are Arizona and Vancouver with 15 points. Calgary sits outside with 6-6-2 record of 14 points. Winnipeg's 3 points out of the playoffs. Dallas is 4 points back. They're only 1 point back of Winnipeg now. San Jose is 6 points out. The Blackhawks are 7 points out, and they're tied with Minnesota and the LA Kings at 7 points out. And the number that seems to be all right now, you're kind of too far back, is 10. 10 and higher, and you're in that danger spot of just not getting back in the race. In the East, Boston is now first in the division, 9-1-2. Buffalo's 9-2-2. Toronto with 6-5-3 record, 15 points. They're still third in the division, but now they would play Buffalo if the playoffs started today. The Capitals 9-2-3. They're first in their division, first in the entire National Hockey League. Carolina 8-3-1. The Islanders 8-3. So very strong division there. Your wild cards right now are Pittsburgh and Florida. Florida with those 4 overtime losses, it nudges them ahead of Montreal by 2 points. Tampa's 2 points back. Columbus is 2 points back. They're all 5-4-2. Philadelphia is 5-5-1. The Rangers are 4-5-1. They're 4 points out of the playoffs. Detroit's 5 points out. The Senators are 7 points out. And check it out. At a 2-5-2 record, the New Jersey Devils, who've been idle a lot, are last overall in the National Hockey League with 6 points, 8 points out of the playoffs, but they've got some games in hand. So at some point, They got to play those games, and I don't think they stay at 31st overall. But we'll see. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing right through. You just happened upon this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll talk to you again soon.